Welcome to AutoSave. My name is Camille Hadaway, and I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Nick Andrade. Hello, Nick.
Wow, that was an entrance and a half. I love it.
Well, it's just dramatic. My family says I'm very dramatic, and when I'm around you, I feel like we're just more dramatic. So,
whoa,
yay.
Your family calls you dramatic? I would never know that.
I mean, I'm not like dramatic where I make trouble, or maybe I do. Maybe I am the problem, as Taylor Swift would say. But no, like, I feel like I just like, we do lots of impressions. Yes. I don't know if people think we're just doing this because it's a podcast, but I'm like this in real life, that so much so that I annoy my family. And I feel like you're in person like this as well. We were just like veer off into bad impressions and like
we're very annoying
the drama's always around. Yeah, we're annoying people. That's what I'm getting at.
Did you ever act?
Oh yeah.
Right. So
I
did
think that's why.
So I think that's why as well, right? Are we like the drama kids, basically?
We are the drama kids.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Everyone hated the drama kids.
I know, right? But I like to think in university we were the cool kids. So
we probably shouldn't get it. We probably should get a new game. But I did a drama class at university after I did high school acting. Totally different. And I actually walked out of the class the first day.
What?
Because I'm like, this is not my scene. And all the kids already knew each other. And I was nervous. So I dropped out of the class. And that was it for me.
I could see that. Yeah, I think I cried the first day of, because I majored in performing arts in university, one of my majors. So I cried for my first like in-person acting class in university. So I mean, yeah, university scares people, but it won't scare us today because luckily there's no university involved. We're playing and we're kicking off. Drum roll, please. Well, I guess because of the title. It's God of War Ragnarok.
Always gives me chills.
I know, it's so good. I have to look up the lyrics to that song, so whenever I have it on my
one
playlist.
Episode, if you sing it, I will love you forever if you sing it on one of these episodes by the end. Please, with the lyrics, the actual lyrics.
That is the goal. By the time we're done this series, hopefully myself, or if I could twist Nick's arm and maybe he could sing it too, we'll sing that theme. But it is so good. And you know what else is good is we're hitting like a very like little special milestone here on AutoSave, because this is the first sequel in the AutoSave verse. This is our first sequel that we're diving into. We've played the 2018's God of War, and now we're able to actually reflect, because all of our impressions of the game have been recorded. They've been written on scripts, and now we're following all that up, diving into the continuation of that story. And I've actually been looking back at our old episodes to see, like, especially for this one, when I was building out this one, to kind of see what we were thinking and where we were landing on the game and how that reflects as we head into these chapters. But how does that feel for you? We have a little mini milestone.
It's really cool, but also like, especially how much I think we enjoyed the 2018 version. The expectations, at least for me, are very, very, very high for this one.
Definitely. I feel like for sequels in general, expectations could be very high or, very low if it wasn't a good original. Yeah. But because of how critically acclaimed 2018's God of War is, I feel like it has high expectations. So for a moment, I just want to talk about sequels in general, because, like I said, and we acknowledge it's a huge feat, because you have to make sure that the fans of this franchise or whatever you're making a sequel of will enjoy the second iteration of it. But also, I feel like sequels have to have some sort of familiarity for fans, but also bring the story to new heights and also have a purpose for existing. Yes. To me, I think that's what makes a sequel great. And at the end of the day, you do that by really having some character growth and then also expanding the world. And when I think of sequels, I really do think of like games. This first one may be controversial, but games like The Last of Us Part 2. Nick, I don't know if you played The Last of Us or Part 2.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
To me, I think that is like great sequel because you're able to explore these characters further and everything about them, like their characteristics is still there. There's that familiarity with how the game plays, but then at the same time, it fills in some gaps that we didn't get in the original game and the DLC. And then it also spins us for a loop. You know, don't worry, we're not getting into spoilers if you haven't played these games. And then when I look at movies, I think Kill Bill Volume 2, because of how the first Kill Bill was left on a cliffhanger.
Yes.
So it has a purpose. But then it dives into expanding this universe of Kill Bill, these characters, some you know and some you've heard about, and you're finally seeing for the first time. Or I feel like, Nick, you would say The Dark Knight.
No, yeah.
What? Are you
yes.
pausing on if Dark Knight is a good sequel?
No, I'm not pausing on that. I'm pausing on you saying that I would have said that.
Oh, okay.
I think it generally, yes, of course, The Dark Knight is the best sequel ever in comic book history, probably, in terms of movies. But I don't know if I was generally going to say that because I thought you were going to.
Okay.
So I left it to you.
Well, I was going to say it, but then I just thought, you know, we are one. We'd align on that. And it seems like we do align on that. So to you, like, what makes a good sequel? And what are some of your picks for, like, great sequels?
What makes a good sequel is that it takes the source material from the first and it expands on it in a, not a different way, but like, let's say there's more character development, more twists and turns, something maybe you didn't expect, becoming attached to these certain characters, just kind of not like adding too much, but sprinkling in like a perfect amount. You obviously look at like The Empire Strikes Back. It kind of really changes the way A New Hope looks as well. And then like movies wise, like The Two Towers, Lord of the Rings, for me is my favorite sequel, which is number 2 in the series. And the way they make it, Battle of Helm's Deep is the best. And then like video games, Uncharted, Among Thieves, Uncharted 2, that one really took like Uncharted to the next level. And then I'm thinking of like Mass Effect 2, Kingdom Hearts 2. Like these are games that took the original and made it even better, which is hard to do. It really is, especially if, you know, a lot of these games are considered masterpieces or even movies considered masterpieces. How can you make the sequel have better stakes or more stakes or keep an audience engaged? And that's the most important thing to a sequel. And as we enter God of War Ragnarok, the expectations are high, in my opinion, because 2018 was so good. However, my hesitation is that they had said that this is the last game in this Norse saga of God of War. And it made me nervous that they're going to try to jam pack in too much.
Oh, okay.
And we are going to maybe be overwhelmed.
Okay.
At least.
I could see that. I mean, 2018's God of War left us with a lot of cliffhangers, huge unanswered questions. And for me, like, that's what I'm looking forward to. And that's why I feel like this sequel is needed because it has a purpose. It left a huge like mystery open at the end. And then it also, I feel like I'm also curious in terms of the relationship between Kratos and Atreus and how much maturity may be there, or like how that relationship would change. Like based on the previous game, we saw a kind of meme like grow out of this, and like it became a phenomenon of like boy across the internet. And I'm not saying like that was a bad thing. It was hilarious and it was great and it played really well and it didn't take away from God of War. But would they have another thing that will kind of take people by storm and like kind of create its own like moment in internet culture for it? I don't know. Because from what I see so far, like we were talking about this, I haven't really seen too many spoilers, which I think the timing that the game came out, end of the year, And I do think the studio was very last minute with its promotions. Not last minute, but it really held back on how they were marketing this game to make sure that you're getting like a really authentic experience diving in for the first time. So I'm curious like how that would really play into this sequel. And then notably as well, it did not win Game of the Year. So even though it's scored high so far, like, does that really mean anything, or will this still be a great game? To me, I don't really pay attention to that, but it is also a good indicator of like what the industry, working industry, thinks of the game. But I mean, Elden Ring was pretty awesome too. So we have a lot to cover today. We are only jumping into chapter 1, but I thought in the game's fashion, I'd just catch you up a little bit on where God of War left off. I think it's kind of needed because I forgot. And one thing I do like, Nick, when you are about to jump into the game on the main menu, you could actually get a recap of God of War. I think every sequel of any game should have this feature.
I didn't even notice. I just went straight in.
Yeah.
So there's the function, and did you watch it?
I did. Yeah, it's on the main menu.
Was it cool? Like, what? Can you explain it?
Like, not cool visually. I mean, it really is just a recap with flames in the front of it to kind of give it that, oh, you're telling a story around the campfire kind of thing. So the flames were kind of distracting because I couldn't see. They like faded the images of 2018's God of War. So like the opacity was kind of high. It was kind of low, I mean. So like you could see it, but it wasn't clear. So like that was a little distracting, but it did refresh my mind because jumping into this, I was like, wait, what happened again? Because there was a lot that happened. And like, what do I need to know? So before I Googled it, it was right there.
So it was like video from the last game.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a tier drawing explanation of anything. Okay.
But that would have been cool. Now that you mentioned it, cool. That would have been cool.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Missed opportunity. Again, Nick and I are out here to help consult on any video game that you may need great ideas for. So last time on God of War, we saw Kratos in Midgard with his son Atreus, who didn't know that Kratos or he was a god, and they set out to fulfill Faye, who is Kratos' late wife, final wish of spreading her ashes at the highest peak in all the realms. Now, because Kratos is coming from Greek mythology, he kind of ruffled the Norse gods a bit because of his bloody past and the fear that he would bring the same fate of killing all the gods, like he did in Olympus, to the Norse gods. So Odin and a bunch of his goons and other gods kind of made it their mission to watch Kratos and maybe stop him from a few things on his journey. Now, the two, Kratos and Atreus, use the Bifrost in Tyr's temple to travel to different realms, and along their journey, they meet a few allies. They also get to explore their relationship, and Kratos starts to fill Atreus in about his past and revealing that Atreus is a god. They go and battle against minions and some gods like Thor's sons, Magni and Modi, who Kratos and Atreus kill. And then the two meet Freya, who is said to be, well, she kind of labels herself as the Witch of the Woods, who helped both of the father-son duo on their journey. But then it's later revealed that her son, Baldur, is a son that she shares with Odin. So she's kind of not good. So Baldur tries to kill Kratos throughout the game multiple times. And although Freya tries to protect Baldur from Kratos with the help of a protection spell that she put on Baldur to make him immortal long ago, Baldur kind of hates his mother and even tries to kill her as revenge for taking away his sense of feeling anything, which is an effect of the protection spell. Because of this, Kratos ends up killing Baldur to protect Freya. And as a mother, obviously she's hurt, but even though she's Kratos' friend at this point, she still vows her revenge on Kratos for killing her son. By the time we get to the end of the game, Kratos and Atreus finally make it to Jotunheim, which is the highest peak in all the realms, to spread Faye's ashes. And there it is revealed that all the giants are dead and that Faye, Kratos' wife, was a giant too. And all the giants referred to Atreus as Loki. Now, unknowing to Kratos at this point, he also sees a prophecy that his death at the hands of Atreus will bring about Ragnarök, the Norse apocalypse, if you don't know what that is. And then the final scene of the game ends with the two back home when a storm hits outside, and then they see Thor waiting for them. When I was caught up, I was like, oh, dang, 2018 had a lot. It was jam-packed.
Bravo. I didn't think that you'd be able to summarize that so well. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. There's a lot that's in there. I still suggest, like, if you have not dived into, or if you want to dive back into God of War 2018, check out our episodes from before. Yes. I think it's a great way to kind of refresh yourself. But today, now that you're filled in on everything you have to know as we start off our journey with Kratos and Atreus, we are kicking it off with surviving Fimbulwinter, which is the first chapter of God of War Ragnarök. And it's right here on AutoSave.
I hope Fenrir got some sleep. Maybe he'll be ready to eat when we get home.
He is quite sick, Atreus.
I know, but he was a little better yesterday. Until he wasn't. If he keeps eating, I'm not giving up on him. Hear that?
Yes.
Is it her?
It is her. The state is not far.
All right, so the game starts off with a seamless transition from the opening screen to the game. I thought that was pretty cool, so I wanted to point that out. And Kratos decides to head back home before a storm hits their hunting. And they cross the Witch of the Woods, Freya. I was not expecting to see Freya this early on.
No, I was so surprised it kind of like just hit you so quickly. I thought there was going to be some sort of like walking journey, and it seemed to start like that. They mentioned Fenrir, which is interesting because I know Fenrir from Norse mythology. So I was like, oh my God, what does that mean? Do they have a giant wolf? Like what's going on? Is this like a spiritual wolf? I have no idea what's happening. And then we get into the sleigh, and little did I know that these dogs would be barking like crazy because my dog was sitting right next to me as I started playing. And then he started bouncing around trying to find the source of the noise. But just such a cool, like you see Kratos in his like winter garb, and so much has changed. It looks like so much time has passed, but not really at the same time. And it just was so nice to hear their voices once again. Yeah, I was just super excited.
She's very persistent. And you know what? I feel like I was kind of happy to see Freya in all of her craziness. I enjoyed this chase sequence and the navigating the sleigh with the wolves. They're not dogs, Nick. Wolves.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. My bad. Wolves.
This is Norse mythology. They go harder than dogs, all right?
Yeah. Dogs didn't exist really, I guess.
Yeah, not then, not yet. But then we actually, in this encounter with Freya, and when she attacks us pretty much 3 times. And then it launches into a few quick time events, and then she'll finally fall. Because what happens is Kratos knocks her, and she hits a branch. I thought she was knocked into like a stave or like the protection spell. Like you see that purple magical dust, and then she falls to the ground as a hawk or eagle. I don't even know what bird that is, but it's a bird.
It was really cool. However, am I the only one who is rolling my eyes? And I feel like I'm just going to end up rolling my eyes throughout this until...
Really?
Like, Freya, give it up, okay? Give it up with your, you killed my son. We get it, okay? But guess what? Baldur hated you and tried to kill you. and all Kratos was doing was trying to protect you. I get it. It's not your choice to decide if I want to live or die, blah, 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 blah. But it's not like he just tried to save her life.
No.
I get it, but come on. Like, why are you trying to kill this man? I thought it was super cool. The scene was really cool, but at the same time, I was like, Freya, just give it up.
Just give it up. Your son's dead. Get over with. Yeah,
that sounds so
That's
bad.
what Nick wants Freya to do. Not sure if that's possible, but what does happen after they are pretty much inside the walls of their protection barrier, which is pretty interesting because it's like, I feel like Freya's also like a wild wolf, like just walking, pacing back and forth, waiting for them to leave that barrier because they're in the middle of her woods, which is very interesting. But there's this quick exchange between Kratos and Atreus as they're finding their way back home. And it talks about Fimbulwinter. And Fimbulwinter is pretty much the prelude to Ragnarok. It's a sign that Ragnarok is coming. And Atreus believes that Kratos killing Baldur kind of created Fimbulwinter. But then I don't remember. I think it was all of Kratos' actions, not just that one. Like, I think it was all of his actions from the game.
There was no specific... I don't remember if there was a mention of what was causing Fimbulwinter. But it almost started immediately after Baldur was killed. So I assume that Atreus is right in thinking this. It just started the motions.
Well, I mean, he's a god.
Right.
He knows. And then they get home.
Come on, boy. You need to eat. Eat. Why? Too big? There you go. Good boy.
Atreus, the time draws near. You must prepare yourself.
For what? He's still eating. He wants to live.
He is dying.
You're a good boy. A brave boy. Fast and strong. But you can rest now. Okay? I'll be okay. You can let go now. You have to let go.
I cried throughout this scene. It was super touching. We see Atreus return home in time for his wolf, as Nick mentioned, Fenrir, final moments. He was sick and he wasn't recovering. And Kratos kind of has to help Atreus at this point say goodbye to his beloved pet. Like, this is so real. And we hear a few Norse words, which makes me want a Norse dictionary. But at this point, watching the scene, I was so caught up in that emotion because a few years back, I actually lost a puppy who became ill, and I was lucky enough to have some time to say goodbye to Enzo. So this brought up a lot of emotions. I was bawling like a baby.
Way to go, Santa Monica. If I had no idea that this is how they're going to start the game after, seeing Freya. This is the next scene, and I couldn't believe it. And I'm a new dog owner. I've had my puppy for a year. So I probably wouldn't have been as emotional watching this a year ago than I was that day. And I was bawling as well. I could not believe that it was just so real and sad. And my dog was beside me hearing the whines of Fenrir and trying to lick my face at the same time. And I'm crying because this is happening. Because this, it's just the saddest thing. Losing
it is so sad.
A pet is one of the most saddest things. And, unfortunately that you had to go through that as well because you've been through it. So that's double the emotion as well. But it's a real thing. And especially in this Norse mythology, It's a potentially long time ago where Kratos is he's the veteran. He's seen this before.
Yeah.
And he's trying to prepare Atreus for this heartbreak, but also to like not get over it, but almost like this is the nature of life.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And say your goodbyes, but this is the end.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, with the first bit that we saw with Freya, I was actually thinking, oh, there's a lot of maturity here that we're seeing Atreus, like, being able to handle his own with Freya, and, like, Kratos actually calling out to him for help, showing that trust, that bond, that conversation about, like, that mature conversation about Freya, never giving up and suffering that loss that she could never forgive Kratos for, and them both acknowledging that, like that, to me, that showed a lot of maturity. But then when we got to this scene, I was like, ooh, there's still like a lot of like naiveness with Atreus. But as we're talking about that and like our own experiences, I was an adult when I lost my puppy, but it was the first puppy that I lost. Like, I didn't want to believe it either. So I think at first I confused this for Atreus being a little bit still naive, but I think actually it's just a reflection of no matter when a loss comes about, you're never prepared for it.
Yeah, and I think he's still growing and learning. And this is probably, since his mother's death, is the first kind of death he has to deal with. But at the same time, like, I was fully expecting not how annoying Atreus was in the first game, but he's a teenager now. So it's like, what kind of bratty teenageness are we going to see in this game? But right off the bat, to me, he seems pretty mature. So I'm just hoping that continues. But I think he took everything really well. Obviously, he doesn't want to say goodbye to his wolf. But at the same time, I think he still feels a little bit more mature in how he's reacting to this.
I agree. I also want to point out that this is kind of a parallel to what happened in the opening scenes for 2018's God of War with the hunting of the deer and Atreus having to kind of perform his first hunting kill and not being able to do it. And you see Kratos trying to talk him through it. And at this point, we actually see, again, in parallel to the first game, they break out into an argument. Kratos, after this heartwarming moment, pretty much says it's time for training. But Atreus like disagrees with that and wants to actually mourn the death of Fenrir. We kind of see this back and forth, and we do see that maybe there hasn't been that much growth in their relationship, because this is kind of like the old bickering that would happen early on in 2018's game. And at the end of it, Atreus like pretty much decides to do his own thing, and he's going to go bury Fenrir, and Kratos kind of decides to back off. Did you notice that parallel?
Yes. In these quick scenes, I still think that their relationship has matured. However, I always think like when you're constantly with one person all the time, and it seems like they're trying to like, stay away from Freya, not stray too far from their house, whatever that is, especially for a teenager, they want to like escape. So for me, like, I can kind of understand why they're getting into arguments, because Kratos is like, we know we need to do this. And Atreus is like, well, I want to do this. And especially when they're always in close quarters, I'm sure that the arguments are still happening quite often because Atreus almost wants to break free.
Well, this argument dissipates, and Kratos and Atreus, they escape from the tension with, like I mentioned, Atreus going to bury his pet wolf. And then Kratos actually going back home where we see Mimir. And Kratos is just like, look, I'm going to go. I'm going to get some sleep. And that's exactly what he does.
Kratos? Are you joining me?
Faye.
Are you ready? You walk as though Ymir himself sits atop your shoulders.
This is your hunt. I will follow.
Very well, Grumbles.
Faye. 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 Atreus!
Time is running out, my love. And there is much to do.
Father! Father!
Okay, so we finally see Faye. This is the woman that we spent the whole game in 2018's God of War pretty much trying to fulfill her final wishes and her last testament and will. So I was not expecting to see her, especially not expecting to see her again this early on. Like, this game is really laying everything out very quickly. What are your thoughts on Faye's appearance? Like, just how she looks. Like, she wasn't what I expected. I thought she'd be more like, I don't know, like Amazonian, Norse, like warrior, just because we hear all these stories. But she just looks like a normal woman.
Yeah, she looks like a gentle woman that you wouldn't expect to be some sort of like warrior.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised that we saw her so early, but that was on the expectation checklist for me, was hoping to see a flashback of Faye. So when I saw her, I'm like, haha, here we go. And then right at the end of that cutscene where, you know, she whispers in Kratos' ear, things are about to get real. Then he starts like yelling and crying in his sleep almost. But that's when I'm just like, okay, this game has already set the expectation that it's going to be intense. And that made me super excited. I got chills during that cutscene because I was thinking, here we go. We're going to learn more about Faye, which is something that I want to know in this game. And hopefully we kind of get more flashbacks with her moving forward. But it seems like in his dream, she's still like, it's a dream, but Faye is talking to him in real time. So it's not necessarily a dream. And that kind of freaked me out as well.
Faye got from really gentlewoman to almost horror movie real quick.
Yeah.
She just popped up in the back, and you're right. It was like a dream sequence that might have been from memory, or maybe like they would. I can imagine that time, Norse mythology. They're hunting a lot. Maybe this is like an amalgamation of all those memories together into like this new sequence. And then when Kratos like starts calling to her, and she just appears. I don't know what's on her hand. She has something on her hand, like I don't know, some sort of bright green liquid that she then places her hand on.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, because then it leaves an imprint on Kratos' head. Like it leaves a mark on Kratos' head. So I feel like maybe this is her way of talking to him, but beyond the grave.
Or is it a blessing?
I don't know. Maybe a blessing. Yeah, it's kind of like how a priest would hold someone's head to pray.
Is she trying to like protect him from something?
Maybe it's like she put a protection spell on. I don't know, but there's something going on here that definitely dives deeper. That is like something to do with real time, or something that she might have done when they were together before she passed, which leaves a lot of questions because we know the Giants had a lot of secrets. So we don't even know their full potential. And I think that's what makes this mystery around Faye so interesting. But from this, obviously, because Faye turns up out of nowhere, she freaks Kratos out of his sleep. And Kratos wakes up and he's looking for Atreus because he's all in a panic. And we notice that Atreus actually has not returned. Mimir tells Kratos this, has not returned from burying Fenrir. So we set out to look for Atreus. We find some tracks that are obviously his, and Mimir believes that Atreus might have went down to the frozen river to bury Fenrir. And I'm at this point, I'm just like, this boy. Like, I wish Atreus was there to kind of translate what was happening, because I feel like Atreus, just with all of his knowledge and like the Giants, and just he seems like we saw with Fenrir, there's something going on with him. Like if there was a connection, like I really wanted to dive in to what was happening in Kratos' dream with Atreus, and we didn't get that. So I was really upset at this point.
But you ever think like Kratos 1000% would never have told him what he saw in his dream, right? He would have left it and would not have told Atreus, because Atreus would become more curious.
That is, yeah, he doesn't like Atreus' curiosity. No. But we do continue to find and set out to find Atreus, and we actually run into a few raiders. Now, this is our first time really dealing with a real fight. I enjoyed it. Brought back the old fighting muscles of the original game. And then we noticed that there was a mauled bear when you take out these raiders. And we realized a bigger bear had to attack it. And it also broke the stave that was protecting Kratos and Atreus and Mimir. So this is allowing a lot more raiders to come into the area, which is great to practice your fighting skills. And then also for me, I was kind of like, oh, is Freya going to be back? Like, this is me just looking out for Freya because I feel like she never gives up.
I was really hoping that we wouldn't see Freya because I did think, okay, the barrier's broken. We're going to see her at any time just trying to kill Kratos. But maybe the game wouldn't do that to us so early, but I was on the lookout for sure. Or just the enemies in general were super fun to finally get back into our attack mode. I was enjoying that.
Yeah. So we actually set out to find this larger bear because we don't want it to disrupt any more staves, as well as we want to make sure that it doesn't get to Atreus. So we have to clear a few trees and raiders along the way with your axe, Leviathan, which is back, which is nice to see. And then once you clear out the raiders that are in a cave, there's a bloody path that leads you to outside. So we get our first boss battle at this point. When we jump out of the cave, we actually get attacked by Bjorn, the bear. I hope I'm saying Bjorn because I want to say Bjork, but it's not the artist.
Also Icelandic.
Icelandic. Yeah. But we find the bear, and this bear jumped out of nowhere and scared me. Again, this game is full of surprises early on. And this fight is a little bit of a challenge because you have to deal a lot of damage onto this bear, and it's 5 sections long. So I found this okay, but it was just like very time consuming when the story was picking up. So I wanted to like kind of get back to the story. So I was a little impatient.
First of all, I had no idea that the bear was called Bjorn. I think I was distracted by the jump scare, but that's hilarious. That it's called Bjorn. Secondly, I'm noticing starting off with the Raiders and then this fight as well, to me, it already feels more challenging than it did in 2018. Did you feel that as well? Because I definitely felt it.
Yes. I was like, this is hard. Like, this game is hard, which made me nervous because like I was just playing like the normal difficulty.
Same.
Yeah, so I was just kind of like, ooh, what am I in store for? Do I need to kind of dial this difficulty down? But once you actually power through this battle, you will defeat Bjorn.
Atreus! 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 Atreus!
What?
First, focus. Heal.
What happened?
You do not remember.
I prayed Fenrir. And then I'm not sure. I was so sad. And then I was angry and scared.
So that bear we were tracking to kill, so it didn't hurt Atreus, turned out to actually be Atreus all along. When did he get this ability? Apparently he was overcome by his emotions of losing Fenrir, and he remembers burying his pet wolf, but then a bear attacking and like wanting to like, I don't know, push through it. So he ended up killing the bear and many raiders in the process. And we've learned quite a bit. Like we've seen little hints of how Atreus's powers have developed so far. Like at the beginning, we see that he was able to, when he did a chant, he was able to like turn Fenrir's soul into something. Like I have no idea what that was, but there was like purple dust coming up from Fenrir. We also see in this section that he's able to heal himself with focus. I guess this is the power of a god. As well, he doesn't remember. And obviously he turns into animals, has that ability, but he also doesn't remember when all of this happens. So what is going on with him?
So I'm guessing based on Loki's powers that we know of in other iterations of Loki, he's a shapeshifter. And so he can change into different forms. I guess in this point he saw a bear, so he turned into a bear, which makes sense in my mind. But then, as we were talking, I just thought of something. The Light of Alfheim in 2018 God of War, right? When he destroys all the Dark Elves while Kratos is in the Light of Alfheim. Now I'm understanding. I think he shapeshifted during that time. And that's how he killed all those Dark Elves.
And that's why he doesn't remember.
Yes. Same thing. Exactly. I think the same thing happened.
That makes sense. So they're actually cluing us in, allowing us to put together the pieces. And we see, like, in this exchange after this that, like, Atreus is realizing that he obviously did all this. He's dealing with a little bit of guilt because I guess he didn't want to hurt the bear. Like, he's very attached to animals, which is the same as the first game. But we see that Kratos has this animosity towards Freya that I think is newer, because he says, like, you know, Atreus is talking about, like, maybe we need to find answers, like someone who could tell me what Loki is, like who I'm supposed to be. Like he's really trying to understand who he is and like what's going on with him. And then Kratos says, your mother's the only person that has those answers and she never told us. Like, and he starts getting really angry at this moment. So it's interesting to hear him have this animosity towards Faye that really explains that he may be holding like a little bit of a grudge with her on that, because he has to actually navigate not only raising a teenager, which apparently is hard. I'm not a parent, but all the movies and all the games and everything tells me that is hard because of all the emotions teenagers go through trying to figure out who they are. But he also has to figure out these new powers and what to expect, and is hoping to have the answers as a parent would, and how Kratos has had answers based off his previous experience, but he doesn't have them now because Faye did not clue him into who she was.
Right. I think that's the main animosity towards her, is basically, why did you hide so much stuff from me? I didn't know that you were a giant. That could have changed a lot of perspective, and now he has to deal with a half giant, half god child. So I don't necessarily, he's upset not knowing that about Atreus, but I think he's mostly upset about Faye not confiding in him enough before she died.
Now, after this, you'll encounter more raiders on your way home, as well as the cubs of the bear that Atreus killed, which is kind of sad to see. And you have this moment where Atreus is kind of asking, like, what can I do? And Kratos says nothing. Like,
I was really sad about that too.
Yeah, they were like crying over the mother's corpse. You hear Kratos kind of also echo these lessons again of like, you have to live with your actions in this moment, this brief exchange. And then the two also repair the broken stave before returning home so they both could get some rest.
What was that?
The ball. Can I come in? I have mead. You would not find me good company. No. I'm sure we'll find lots to talk about.
All right, so it's the god of thunder, Thor himself. And apparently he likes to throw a drink back every once in a while, which is funny. But this is the last scene we saw. We didn't fully see Thor before, but we saw like Mjolnir and the lightning, the storm. So I guess everything previous to this moment was kind of filling in that gap, because the first game didn't really give a sense of how much time passed until you saw Thor arrive, but now we know there was quite some time that passed after they left Jotunheim. I mean, Thor he's pretty badass. He's no Chris Hemsworth, but He has Odin's ravens and he has a big belly. And I do like this design of Thor.
Yeah, he looks like a badass. My first thought is the scene that we saw in 2018 was a dream, but a dream that is reality, basically. And so they see it again, but they kind of like forget about it. I was just taken aback because I'm like, here we go. Here's another Baldur situation, and we're going to have to fight him, but he asked for a drink. So I was really surprised at how it started. It really subverted my expectation here in this scene.
Yeah, I was like, oh, maybe he's a potential ally. So we end up letting him in for...
No.
Well, I was like, hey,
we killed his sons. I don't think so.
He's BYOB, all right. He's bringing his own beer, and then he's just coming in. We're just gonna kick a few back. We're allies, all right. Maybe he didn't care about his sons, but we let him in, and we listened to what he has to say.
Are you a calm and reasonable person?
If the moment calls for calm.
I'd say the moment calls for calm. Yeah.
You know who I am? Back before winter set in, there were some misunderstandings. Regrettable ones. But I think we all have a better idea of who we're dealing with. Now, what you did to his boys. Self-defense. Dying is what we Aesir live for. And let's be honest, they were kinda useless. But Baldur, he had value. He was my best tracker, my closer. Yeah, his mind was gone, sure. But he had his uses, and now he's gone because of you. You follow me?
What do you want?
How about peace? How does peace strike the esteemed, retired god of war? How about we just don't kill each other? How about you stay home, kick up your feet, seek no quarrel with me, and I'll have none with you. Of course, it means that one has to stop his search for Tyr.
So Odin's here, apparently. I want to, like, what is happening? Everything is too calm. Like, everyone just walks in and just like, hey, we're here for a little chitty chatty. We brought the mead. Do you have some appies? Like, it's such a weird thing that's happening. One thing I want to point out is, I don't know if this is for you, but Thor reminds me of Josh Brolin. So I keep thinking Thanos in my head for Thor.
Good. That's a great... I couldn't put my finger on it as to why he seems so familiar, but I think that's the aesthetic that they were looking for.
Yeah, they're like, we want Thor to be our Thanos. And they went for it. Also,
so we talked about Thor's look. What about Odin's look? For me, he just looks like a character from Seinfeld or something. I'm surprised
he talks like one too.
Yeah, he does. Is he from Brooklyn? Is Odin from Brooklyn?
I've seen iterations of like Odin being like smaller and like not like big and godly, or like having that immediate association to what you think a god to his level would look like. But the voice, for me, was the thing that threw me off, especially like later on in the conversation I'll bring this up, but like just some of the things he says, I'm just like, he is from New York.
He sounds like Steve Buscemi a little bit, now that I think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, like he's Mr. Pink from Reservoir. He's like, hey, come on, like we don't... there's no fighting
come on,
here.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
You killed his sons. Who cares? Like, we can figure this out.
We're friends. And despite the New York accent, he does kind of come to Kratos looking for a solution, which is peace for all the chaos that Kratos has brought the first time around when we saw him. And he mentions that Kratos still has a debt to pay. So he's kind of proposing that this isn't a peace offering that we want to put on the table, but there's something that we want from you. And what that is they want Atreus to stop looking for Tyr, and even offers that if Kratos goes for this deal, they will help Freya go after the two of them. So it would keep Atreus safe.
Help
so
them
it
or
isn't
not help them. Sorry.
Help them because Odin's like, oh, I'll even
help
deal
them
with my
against
ex.
Freya. Understood.
Yeah. So then, for this, it's a pretty sweet deal, but it also reveals the fact that Atreus has been looking for Tyr. Boy, are you kidding me? We've heard of Tyr from the first game. We know how impactful he was, especially for the giants and leading the giants, and how he was seen by others in all the realms. But I didn't know they were coming back to Tyr so quick. Again, this game is like, we're not wasting any time. We're laying it all on the table because we have a lot to cover.
I'm not shocked that Atreus has been looking for Tyr, to be honest. I'm sure he's gone through some mischief in his time that we haven't seen him for a while, especially if Kratos is asleep. This is probably not the first time that he goes on his own and gallivants and does whatever. But it's interesting, especially how Odin is trying to keep the peace.
Yeah, but you know who is surprised? Kratos, because he had no idea that Atreus was doing any of this. No. So obviously he looks frustrated, and he ends up even obviously not going. He doesn't look like he's interested in this deal at all, even though Odin says, dead, you understand me? He's dead, which I found hilarious. Trying to tell Atreus that he is not alive. Even Mimir he points out that Mimir will be able to stay with Kratos and Atreus if Kratos goes for this deal. So there's a lot of good things for Kratos in this deal, but just this one thing for Odin that is very sus, and Mimir isn't trusting a word that Odin is saying. So Kratos decides to turn it down.
About time. I've been waiting for this. You're not from here. We got a tradition called blood payments. It means I get a piece of you for what you took from my family. You'll pick it up. That was for Baldur. Now show me this god killer I've heard so much about.
All right, so we finally get that fight that was teased from the last game, and also in the beginning of this game, we see Thor and Kratos duke it out, and it's very obvious that Thor wanted this to happen. So whatever they were offering, it was purely, or whatever it seemed like Thor was a part of with this offer, he's just being directed by Odin, which I found so interesting because he didn't look like the type of god to take orders from even his father, but then he's really following along. I wouldn't have thought Thor would just be like, okay, forget my sons if he accepts this deal.
I think the whole aspect is, I think he's afraid of Odin, to be honest. I know Odin looks like a, random guy from New York, but I think obviously they've been
He works at a pizza joint in New York.
Yeah, it definitely seems like, although Thor is a badass, and he seems like, through the stories that we've heard, how many, beings he's killed or gods he's killed, whatever it is, he's afraid of Odin. And he's afraid, and he follows Odin to a T no matter what. But he was waiting for this moment, and he was just trying to be civil because Odin said, we got to make a deal with these guys. Good for Kratos to not trust Odin, because everything we've heard of Odin from Mimir in the past, he always is very manipulative in what he's trying to say. Yeah. So never take his words too seriously. Always take them with a grain of salt. So good for him. However, that means now he's got to fight Thor, and this fight is pretty damn intense.
It is super intense. I died a couple times in this fight. It involves a lot of dodging, heavy blows, and some quick time events. And these quick time events, you literally throw Leviathan in the gut of Thor, and he just pulls it out. and continues fighting. I was like, oh no. But luckily, right about when you're getting pummeled by Thor, when you think you have the upper edge, Thor kind of grabs onto us and you start to get pummeled where it seems like this fight is coming to an end. But
I see why my sons fell to you. Even this lesser version of you. But I am not my sons. And your boy, Allfather, have plans for him. There he is. There's the god of war. Consider your blood debt paid.
so all of this was really just a distraction jutsu because we learned that Odin has some sort of plans for Atreus. And then Thor goes on to say that the blood debt is repaid. So I'm terrified for what happened to Atreus back at the house because we kind of left him there with Mimir. But I'm also curious about what this plan could be and if it really is enough to settle this blood debt. Like, I feel like there has to be something in store for Thor. I don't know. It just seems to me, for all the anger that he put into the beginning of this fight and telling us that he wants to take something from Kratos, it just seems like this just settling the blood debt without finishing the fight means that either Atreus is dead back at home or they kidnapped him or he's getting something from this as well.
Everything that I think Odin does is calculated to a T. He's not just having a conversation. Everything is planned or pre-planned. He knows everything he's doing. So he repaid the blood debt, but all it was a fight to get him to show Thor that he is the god of war and kind of what his power is. And it was all a distraction.
Like warrior appreciation too, right?
Yes.
Like that appreciation for the fight.
Right. But it was all a distraction for Odin to spend some time with Atreus, I think, and talk to him and maybe manipulate him because he is a kid. So you never know what he's going to believe.
Exactly. Well, we head back panicked because we left Atreus alone. So let's see what happens.
Why were you searching for Tyr?
If I told you I was looking for him, you would have said not to.
So you hid the truth from me.
I wanted to tell you. I really did, but now that you know, there's something you should see.
No.
Just trust me, you'll want to.
Trust! You have broken my trust.
Then let me regain it. Let me show you what I found. Besides, we haven't seen the last of Odin or Thor. And clearly they can just walk in and blast holes in our home whenever they want. There's only one way to get them off our backs. And I think I know how. Sir.
All right, so there's a lot that happened. So we actually find that Atreus and Mimir are in pretty decent condition, and that Odin just had a conversation with Atreus outside, away from Mimir, that Atreus tells us was just an invite to join Asgard, and that he also wanted to pay for the roof and gave him a coin to do that, which I don't know, that coin's kind of sus. But obviously, Kratos is very angry, and rightfully so. Like, he doesn't want anything to do with Thor and Odin. And to see, I think, Atreus like so calm, there leaves a lot of mystery on like what the motives are of Odin. And knowing Kratos, he wants to know everything so he could protect his family. But we obviously see that Odin won't give up, as Atreus says, and that Atreus believes that finding Tyr would actually hold the answers, which now opens up this huge question if Tyr is alive, which, I mean, I don't think the Allfather would go through all of these lengths if he wasn't.
Well, that's the hints throughout the 2018 game. How many times did they mention that Tyr might still be alive? So it's been always sending us into that direction. So that's why Atreus has always been looking for him. Odin inviting Atreus to Asgard, probably not a good thing. And he probably said more to him that Atreus is not hinting at, because I do think you can always see that Atreus is trying to hide things from Kratos right now. But Kratos is the one who saw in Jotunheim the stone tablet that is showing him dying, basically. So he knows that. So I think he's always just trying to prepare Atreus for his eventual death. But also that's why he wants to know these answers, because he's trying to avoid all of that and avoid them having to deal with Odin. So he wants to know the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Because of this point that Atreus brings up, Odin won't stop. Kratos agrees to see this temple that Atreus really wants to show Kratos, because there's something there. And the temple's in the woods, which is where Freya is. So again, I'm also just on guard because I never know when she will appear. We discover a few bloody raider bodies, so it's clear that we're not alone in the woods. And then we also encounter some Hell Raiders, so they're introducing a few new minions here. As you continue to traverse ahead through the caves, you'll see an icy wall, and then once you climb there, you'll actually encounter the Huntress, who is like a boss or a mini boss, I guess. She's pretty cool. She has like this grapple, but pretty much she's a stalker, which is, I guess, a half deer, half raider. But it's like a pretty easy,
almost, right?
Yeah, a centaur. Thank you. But she's pretty much easy to navigate because she has her horns that glow, which indicate her weakness. So if you aim there, you're good.
Yeah, again, like Thor fight, the bear fight, this fight, the Huntress is the easiest one of the three, but everything has been relatively difficult for me, where I've been questioning being on normal mode. Not that it's been hard, but I've noticed like my health bar is significantly low at all times. And I'm thinking, if this is the way the game is going to go for me right off the hop, it's not going to be a good time. So I'm definitely afraid this definitely has a harder skill level than the first one. So preparing myself, but the Huntress is a really cool battle. And I think so far all these battles have been really cool.
Yeah, I have to say, a really, really cool battle. It's a hard battle, and you will defeat her. And once you do...
What is this, lad? Where are we?
Somewhere only giants were meant to see. These shrines tell their stories to the world. But it turns out the real stories, the secret stories, those they kept here, inside. Look, here's Ragnarok. Do you see who's leading the armies against Odin? That's Tyr. If he's gonna be around at Ragnarok, that means he's gotta be alive. Right?
Mimir, can this be?
Odin told me he killed Tyr, and he trusted me at the time, or so I thought.
What if he didn't kill him? What if he's just had him locked up somewhere all this time?
We are back to ifs. Enough.
Wait.
We are going home.
Wait! I have one more thing to show you. It's just out here.
I'm a little confused because we find this shrine, and behind the shrine, there is the real secrets that the giants leave for each other that shows that Tyr is alive. But then, like Mimir, I'm confused as whether this is the past or future, or maybe it's showing a potential future. And maybe this is how the giants have all their secrets, because they could see what may come. But we know a hint here that maybe there is a way to get to Tyr, and it is through the dwarves.
Yeah, I think especially with the giants, we have, they haven't, everything that's been in the past, we've questioned if it's the past or the future, or it's happened already, or even Faye potentially knows what has happened already. Like we saw all the depictions on the walls, all the giants are dead. And in Jotunheim, they already had Kratos in those paintings. So we never know if it's past, future, present, whatever it is. I just want to say too, like, as much as Kratos is upset with Atreus keeping things from him, if he didn't do all this research on finding Tyr, or trying to find Tyr, he wouldn't have unlocked these paintings. He had looked at them himself and then realized that you can actually enter them. So good for him. So, Kratos, back off a little bit, because Atreus is finding things and he wouldn't be able to find it if you were, if you were around, he probably would have said, no, stop doing that, or let's be safe, blah, blah, blah. So good for Atreus to find these things, because these are now things that we need to know moving forward. And yeah, Tyr might be alive, so we'll see.
Yes, back off, Atreus. And yeah, we will have to see if Tyr is alive, but pretty much I love this little tidbit that Sindri helped Atreus find all this stuff, so Kratos is also pissed at him. But we also have, like I said, go to the dwarves to find out if Tyr is really alive, and Kratos agrees to this because there's a lot of more unanswered questions now. But they'll need help traveling because Odin actually cut off traveling to the other realms, which means that we'll probably see familiar faces.
Come in. Come in! Now, if you would just wipe your feet very thoroughly, I'll wait. You're not gonna wipe your feet, are you? Okay then, your bedrooms are there, the kitchen is just over there. Anybody need a snack? Kratos? Snack?
I do not need a snack.
What we need is your help getting to Svartalfheim so we can try and rescue Tyr.
To Tyr? Alive? I mean, that's... What?
It's okay. I told him everything.
Everything?
You aided my son and disobeyed me.
No, I kept an eye on him. On your behalf. Nothing risky. Everything very safe. Somebody else speak.
What's important right now is that we try and open up travel between realms again. You said you know a way?
Yes, I do. It's just a lot of mud.
All right, so since it's not safe, obviously, for Kratos and Atreus to be home, they end up going to Brock and Sindri's to figure out a way to travel between the realms. Now, it's great to have this comedic relief pair, this duo, come back. I actually enjoyed this exchange here, and dang, look at this house and how pristine it is. I love that as well. They also riffed off this awkward phase that they feel Atreus is going through because he's obviously going through puberty, being a teenager. He's growing and he looks different. His voice has changed. So I like that they call that out as well. And they also make this door, Mystic Gateway, that would allow Kratos to travel without a Bifrost lamp or the travel table that we used in the original game. So they pretty much act as a portal. And this is actually where we get to see the first glance at the upgrade and skill tree system in the game, which is a little different than the first game. And as we go through the chapters, I feel like we're going to dive even more into that. But initially, what are your thoughts on the skill tree?
They look awesome. I'm super stoked because it seems like it's more in depth than it was in 2018. You got a bunch of other different things to look at, skill trees with the weapons. Then you have some gemstones, I guess, that you can unlock as well that we see. There's a few different, I think there's hilts as well. Like it looks like there's a few different things that are making the combat probably more diverse, I guess. And I'm super excited to get into that. I'm also super excited to see Brock and Sindri in this game as well. And the house looks incredible. Yeah. It's just nice to see like familiar, funny characters because we just went through like a super dramatic first chapter with a lot of things that took place. So it was nice to kind of get a breath of fresh air there.
Yeah, it definitely was nice to have a breather. And when I saw that skill tree, I was like, okay, there's hope that these fights will be manageable in the future, which means that you're going to have to probably collect a lot of hack silver to upgrade your items. But this is pretty much how this chapter ends, with Brock and Sindri suggesting that we talk to Durlin at the tavern in Neovalir City, where the dwarves are, to get more information on how we could potentially find Tyr if he's alive. And we kind of head out on the journey, and that's it for this chapter. Nick, any last thoughts?
No, it just, again, like it was a jam-packed chapter 1. I think at the end of it, I had to take a deep breath because I couldn't really believe that we went through so much in that chapter, seeing Thor, seeing Odin, fighting Freya, learning about Tyr, learning that Tyr might still be alive. You know, Atreus's powers, like there's so much to kind of break down here that we saw in just one chapter, that it's a lot. So, you know, if you start this game, just be prepared that it hits you real fast.
It will hit you real fast. There's a lot to take in, and there's even more when we get into the gameplay, when we dive a little bit into the gameplay and some of the new moves that you learn. But let's take a little bit of a breath from all that action. So overall, it was a pretty good chapter, and I have to say it felt really good too. Wielding the Leviathan axe again, like I really loved it. It's familiar. You're still using L1 and R2 light and heavy attacks, but then you also get these new abilities like the Frost Awakening ability, where you press triangle to charge up your axe, and then you could use it to like freeze some enemies. I like that.
Yeah, it definitely seems like they tried some new things as well. You know, Kratos has been with this axe for quite some time, so he's learned new abilities with it as well. The combat seems a lot more smooth in this game as well. They've honed it a lot, and I enjoy that we already off the bat also have our Blades of Chaos at the same time, that we can use them right away. I was afraid that we were just going to have our Frost Axe again, and he put away his blades, but it seems like he kept them. So there's just some new moves, new formats, and I'm just excited to see what we unlock and if there's, you know, new different ways that we can attack enemies now.
Yeah, same here. Blades of Chaos, good mention. I was really happy actually to see that you have them equipped and you could kind of transfer back and forth between the two as well. The game also introduces this new mechanic of this yellow and red circle indicators that kind of help you understand when enemies are attacking you, if it's going to be a strong attack or a attack that is kind of weaker that you could block. I like it, but I felt like it was cheating. But then as I got into the battles, I was like, oh no, I need cheats because this is hard. So I like that as well.
I don't look at it as cheating. Like a lot of games have markers when a bigger attack is come in. Or
it's a pretty big marker. Like it's a circle that pretty much takes up the whole enemy.
Well, red, you know that you can't avoid it if you get attacked, right? So you have to dodge. I understand. I guess like it's telling you what to do, but I mean, for me, like I enjoy it, and you know, most games have these kind of like markers now where you have to know how to dive. But I guess like if you're like an Elden Ring statesman or something like that, you're like, oh well, I need some super. I don't know if it's hard. Like if is it only an easy and normal thing? Is it in the hard mode? I'm guessing it is. But again, this game already seems way harder than it was. So
yeah,
hell yeah, I'll use these markers.
Actually, I don't know if it's in the hard mode. It may not be. So, like, if you're on hard mode, please let us know. Tweet out to us. Let us know. Speaking of battles, you have 3 boss battles. Well, 2 in a mini fight. You have Bjorn the Bear, Thor, and the Huntress. I think all were great battles. Really, did it fix your, give you your fix of your boss battles right off the hop, Nick? Because I know that was a huge thing for the first game.
Yes. Because again, we had the Huntress. Like it wasn't just with the bear, like Thor. It wasn't just like one fight. That was one thing that I thought was lacking in the last game, is there wasn't enough diversity within boss battles. It was like a frost giant, it was a troll, and we only faced off Magni, Modi, and Baldur, and only a couple times. So already off the bat, I'm starting to notice that I think people told them to maybe add in some more difficult fights. So I'm excited for that.
I am as well. Also, I don't know if I'm excited or maybe a little bit overwhelmed. There's a lot that you could, with the upgrade system, you have to actually collect a lot of hack silver to upgrade your weapons, your skill tree, and your armor. And then there's other things as well that you could collect in red coffins. Red coffins are found in this chapter. I think there's like 3 or 4 of them. You could find them as you're heading out to find Atreus by the river. You'll see raiders that you defeat and a bridge. You could get a red coffin there. At the temple, there's a cracked wall as well. And then on your way back home, there is a red coffin, kind of where the mystic gate is at the back of the house of Kratos and Atreus. So look out for those. I know, Nick, you are a huge collector of everything, but it's very intimidating for me because I feel like with these boss battles, I am going to be forced into a lot of searching, looting, side missioning. I feel like we're going to probably get hack silver from that as well. But overall, I guess it means good. More time with the game.
I was afraid, like I kept looking for Nornir chests to see if there was any. Don't think there was any in this chapter. I'm sure there will be moving forward. However, I do find it funny because of my constant searching for hack silver and stuff like that in this game, and it starts in chapter 1. Atreus will tell you like, "Oh, you like looking for all these things, huh?" Like it seems like it's a theme in this game where Atreus is going to be telling me when I am actually, searching for items rather than doing the main quest, which I thought was funny.
There's a lot that we covered in this chapter because it is a meaty chapter, and there's a lot for, I think, everyone to know heading into the rest of the game. Like, this kind of sets the tone and kind of storylines for everything. But there are also a lot of parallels to the 2018 game. Atreus losing his memory and then killing people. That happens here too. I mentioned before the deer, and now with the wolf, the loss. So I think we're going to see a lot of those themes brought up in this game. It's just, how are they going to be able to make it fresh? Which I'm curious on. And honestly, I can't wait to go through this journey with you, Nick, because it seems like it's shaping up to be a good one so far.
They kind of subverted our expectations here in terms of chapter 1 seemed very, very, very similar to chapter 1 in 2018. However, it was the Thor Odin scene that they kind of were like, it's not exactly going to go how you think. So again, and then there was also the fake cutscene, which I didn't expect as well. So my expectations already off of 2018 already high, and chapter 1 I think fulfills that. It already made me excited for what's in store.
There is a lot in store that is going to go down, and we're going to have to see what that is as we dive into these chapters of the game in the following episodes. So stay tuned right here on AutoSave to find out what's next. AutoSave is produced and hosted by Nick Andrade and myself, Camille Salazar-Hadaway. The show is also produced by Dylan Wilson. Gameplay and additional elements provided by Chris Zeiser. Technical production by Greg Fillion. Executive producer Clayton Hansler. You can follow the show at AutoSave Podcast on Twitter and AutoSave Pod on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. You can subscribe to the show wherever you're listening to it right now. And if it happens to be Apple Podcast, kindly leave us a rating and a review, but only if it's good. AutoSave is a Soda original hosted on the Soda Podcast Network.